Hello, welcome to my channel, Sea Infinity. So in this video, just doing a quick little oracle reading for my handmade deck. So if this video has found you, then as always, with all, timeless collective readings, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and use your own discernment. Okay, so my camera cut off there for some reason. But anyhow, we'll go take the top card off just because that came out on the pre-shuffle. So we'll take that out as the card to begin this reading, and then we'll see what else wants to come out. My camera cut off again, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but that might be a little part of the energy for this reading for some reason, but we'll carry on and see. All right, so God, Spirit, Source, Mother Gaia, Angels, Archangels, Ascended Masters. Oh, that seems like too many. Which messages of guidance do you have for the collective? Again, it cut off, but we'll keep going. We've got a couple that have already come out. Ooh, let's see if maybe like one or two more wish to come out here. Any more cards? Oh wow, that was way too many. All right. Let's see, just one or two more, please. One or two more. One or two more. Again, it cut off, but carry on we shall. Okay. Let's move them up a bit, see if that fits in a bit better. There we go. All right, it keeps cutting off, but I'll just keep carrying on. Some sort of interference seems to be part of this message for some reason. Just switch these around slightly. I just don't like the way it was looking. All right, that'll do. So we have Ascension, Lyran, Inner Compass, Telepathy, Source God, Matrix Agent, and Boundaries. So let's start with the Ascension card, the first one. So we've got Awakening, Integration, we'll carry on, Expansion, Balance, Alignment, Remembering, Consciousness, Growth. You are integrating new levels of understanding into daily life. Move slowly and stay grounded. With greater awareness comes greater choice. Something within you is opening naturally. Let it unfold at its own pace. Ascension invites you to live with intention, not perfection. A great little sign and card to come out to say that you are on an ascension journey, an awakening journey, in this sort of spiritual realm. Your consciousness is expanding at this time. You're coming more into alignment and integrating different energies. You may be remembering certain things as well, just sort of divine downloads or past life remembrance. And so, as you are integrating these new levels of understanding, to move slowly with it and stay grounded, allow it all to integrate within yourself. And know that, it's all a natural process that unfolds at its own pace. So you don't need to rush it or push it. And as it says, invites you to live with intention, not perfection. And that with greater awareness comes greater choice. So also just, being mindful to what you're sort of, aligning yourself to as you do expand. We do live in an infinite universe with infinite possibilities. And the more you come to understand this, and the more your consciousness expands in a way that it can tap more into that sort of infinite energy, the more possibilities that you can encounter or that can arise. So having, intention when you come to making those sort of choices or alignments, but knowing that it doesn't need perfection, doing what feels right for you in a way that brings about happiness and aligns with your joy and inner heart wisdom, which, goes well with the inner compass card underneath there. And sometimes, going through such an ascension can feel a little wobbly or destabilizing as you kind of, grasping these new concepts or, or integrating new forms of awareness or understanding, and to not let that overwhelm you at all or to sway you off the path at all. And to, feel invigorated by that and all the potentials and opportunities and possibilities that can unfold for you through that. All right, I feel like a good one to lead on to next is that inner compass, seeming that connected well with what I was saying. So we have intuition, self-trust, soul navigation, true north, inner guidance. Trust your knowing even when the map seems unclear. Follow the nudges, the whispers, the winks. They're the secret GPS of your soul. Silence the noise and follow what feels authentically right for you. Your heart knows the way. So, as we were mentioning, really tapping into that inner guidance, following your true north, following, the whispers of your heart and what feels right for you, following your intuition and really trusting that, no matter what the outside world or other ideas or energies, may be saying or influencing. Really following your own inner compass in that way, because you're the one who holds your own inner compass. So you're the only one who can decide and decipher that direction and guidance. No one else holds that compass for you. So listening to your own inner voice and having, that trust and courage to do so is a really important time and thing to do during such an ascension type journey here. And then we have Lyran up here. Ancient power, courage, wild, confidence, authenticity, fire. Authentic expression, self-leadership, and reclaiming one's ancient power. Graceful wisdom, raw creative fire, bold. Tap into play, sensuality, and high vibe self-expression. Bright, regal, free. Step into sovereignty, drop masks, or ignite dormant codes of confidence and divine fire. A really, really strong and powerful and beautiful energy that, relates to the Lyrans. May also be coming out as a little sign or synchronicity as well that your soul may be connected to the Lyrans, to that star system. You may be of Lyran sort of, descent, or like a Lyran star seed yourself, or may just have, a connection to that Lyran energy in some way, or Lyran soul tribe members or what have you that are guiding you at this time. And so lions as well could be a strong sign or synchronicity for you here. But really having that, that wild, free, regal, ancient sort of, confidence and power to your own authentic expression. Really encouraging you to step into your own sovereignty and, having that high vibe self-expression of yourself, that raw creative fire force, not being afraid to be bold while also being, graceful. having that self-leadership and reclaiming that ancient power within you and not being afraid to do so, which is also such an important thing to do while on such an ascension journey. So whether you're, actually connected to the Lyrians or not, it's still such a beautiful and powerful energy to kind of, embody and step into in that way of authenticity and confidence. Being wild and allowing yourself to express that fire energy within you. With passion and creativity. And, not being afraid as well on such a journey to still play, tap into play and sensuality as you express yourself. Not everything has to be so serious in that way. You can still, have a powerful, sovereign approach to these sort of things, but you can still do so in a free, wild way that's, playful and sensual for yourself and your energy. All right, and then we have telepathy. Energetic communication, intuitive knowing, heart connection, non-verbal truth, resonance. Some messages are felt, not heard. You are picking up on more than you realize. Sacred communication is unfolding. Some connections transcend distance. You are not imagining this resonance. Meet it with awareness. Not all communication uses words. So this might be coming out as a little sign or synchronicity for you here that you are tapping into your own telepathic abilities here, or you may be receiving or engaging in some form of telepathic communication to someone that you're connected to, whether on a more soul aspect or level or physically embodied, or even receiving telepathic information or guidance from say like a Lyran energy or other star being type energies, or someone on your soul team that's really guiding you at this time. Your spirit team or guardians that are with you and supporting you along your ascension journey. So if you do sort of experience any form of telepathy or sort of inner knowing, or feel like you are receiving some sort of message of guidance or communication in a telepathic way, to not just dismiss that as silly imagination or something, and really trust that communication and following your intuitive knowing and heart connection, that sort of inner compass guide here when engaging with such communication. Really, having that discernment in that way, but also having that trust of what you are receiving is true. And if your own telepathic abilities do begin to start unfolding in such ways, not to be alarmed by that at all, and to know that it is, an ability that we do have and can tap into. And just because it's, not so commonly discussed or expressed or found in this sort of current aspect of reality, we find ourselves here in the more, 3D earthly realm, doesn't mean that it's not real or not happening. And, many sort of, star beings or, extraterrestrial energies, or however you like to look at it or define it, have strong telepathic abilities, and that is just their normal mode of communication. And so as part of this ascension process, those sort of abilities for humanity will become stronger and more normalized as we kind of move forward into that sort of new earth way of living and experiencing things. And then we have Source, God, so infinite intelligence, unconditional love, creation, sacred guidance, divine flow, presence. You are part of a greater intelligence. All is born from the same root. There is no separation from what sustains you. Align with the source within, and everything aligns outside. You are a wave in an infinite ocean. You are held, guided, and never alone. Divine presence is not distant, it moves through you. It's our beautiful, beautiful card and reminder to come out here. Knowing that source energy, that energy of God and divinity is within us all, and we are all connected to it, through those shared branches of oneness in that way. We all are waves in the same ocean, coming from the same waters. And so knowing that you always are connected and supported in that way, and you're never truly alone in that aspect. And knowing that, there's nothing that you need to do to achieve or be worthy of such a connection with Source or with God, because that energy is within you and flows through you and is you. You are a part of it, and it is a part of you. Always has been and always will be. Energy cannot be, created or destroyed. It's merely transformed, and sort of in that way of, the ocean with the waves. You came from the ocean and formed into a wave, and then, you at some point along your journey return and form back into that infinite ocean that you always have been a part of and always are a part of and connected to. And knowing, the infinite depth of such an energy and connection, it holds and is everything in existence within this infinite universe, and you are connected to that. All of creation is part of this source energy expressing itself through different forms. And so knowing that you can connect to that infinite intelligence within yourself and untap more, knowledge and abilities and information from within yourself as you hold that infinite well of source energy within yourself. And, that unconditional loving aspect of that source energy that we all are and are all connected to. We are all divine children of God, in that way, if, that's a way you like to look at it and resonate with it. And we all are unconditionally loved in that aspect. And so to know that you can always connect to that source energy, to God, and you earn or deserve such a thing or be worthy of such a thing or pass certain tests or parameters. That unconditionally loving energy and presence is always with you and always within you, and you are always connected to it, and nothing can ever change that or take that from you. So, not being afraid to connect to God or that source energy in that way, knowing that sacred guidance and that sacred connection is your divine birthright and is who and what you are. And so knowing that energy of, source, of God, of the divine is always with you, connected to you and supporting, guiding and loving you. That presence is always present and available for you to tap into. The illusion of separation is just an illusion in that aspect. You truly never are separated from Source or from God. You always have that connection and always will be connected and a part of such an energy, as that energy, is flowing through you and is what, creates you and is you. Just as, with the sun here, like the energy of the sun itself, comes down to earth and is the energy that has, created everything that we see in some form or shape. it grows the plants, and then the animals eat the plants, and so on and so forth, in so many different aspects. You know, that energy from the sun is then, you know, nourishing and within everything in a certain aspect in that way. And so too is that energy of source and God within everything and a part of everything. So not only is it always, you know, watching over you, supporting you, guiding you and loving you, it is also within you and a part of you. And that we all are connected in that way. And then we've got Matrix Agent, which is a funny one to come out here with the rest of the message. So we have unconscious programming, conditioning, scripts, conformity, system voices, glitches, awareness. It's funny now with the glitches, with all the glitches I've had with this recording where my camera keeps cutting out. So that seems quite resonant and aligned for this message. So you don't have to follow the script. Not every voice comes from truth. Some come from conditioning. Notice what feels automatic rather than aligned. Awareness breaks the spell. Conscious choice is your exit point. If it feels rehearsed, rigid, or oddly predictable, pause. Curiosity restores agency. So this card's, you know, really coming out in a way to remind you that, you know, although we do live in, you know, quite a collective sort of 3D shared experience of reality, and, you know, certain beliefs and programming and things we've been taught or told or conditioned to, you know, believe, or ways to act, you know, and a lot of this becomes, you know, like subconscious or unconscious programming, that we don't have to conform to such systems or programmings. We always have that divine sovereignty and divine will to follow our own inner compass and to make conscious choices and decisions and walk our own pathway through this life. You know, having that conscious awareness in that way, you're not feeling like you need to listen to every outside voice or energy or direction, you know, following that inner compass truth instead, and really trusting what feels aligned and what doesn't, and kind of noticing or catching yourself when you might just be falling back into sort of more unconscious programming rather than following that true path or what feels aligned for you. You know, not just following the script in that way, kind of writing your own script. You know, particularly going through an ascension type journey as well, it can be easier to start to become more aware of these sort of, you know, energies in that way within ourselves and within other people too, where, you know, they might just be more blindly kind of following the status quo or certain programmings or beliefs. And, you know, not being alarmed by that at all, but just seeing it as a way to encourage you to follow your own script and follow your own voice rather than just, you know, the voice of the system or certain programming. And knowing as well that, you know, sometimes when you do, you know, follow your own pathway or your own guidance, or start doing things a little out of the regular, kind of break the script in that way, you know, you can experience some little glitches or what have you in your reality, and to not be alarmed by that at all, or any sort of, you know, bizarre glitchy sort of experiences or matrix agent type experiences you may encounter or come across. And just to see it as a sign that you are, you know, breaking free from those paradigms and programmings to come into a more sovereign way of living, where you're following your own path and journey. And, you know, sometimes if you want to look at it from a way of like timeline shifting or what have you, can, you know, those sort of changes, you know, that aren't so sort of expected from this sort of more unconscious programming. You know, when you do sort of break the script, it can kind of, you know, cause glitches in certain energies in a way, because it's, you know, a little startled or not what it expected, or needs to, you know, shift you into a new paradigm in a way. So not being alarmed by that at all. And see it more as, you know, a confirmation that you are, you know, breaking more free from those chains of, you know, more unconscious programming or conditioning. Following that more sort of source aligned, you know, divine sort of guidance and pathway, rather than just, you know, following the system voices in a more sort of, you know, robotic, autonomous way, being more wild and free and courageous, like that Lyran energy, and not being, you know, afraid by any backlash or glitches that may be produced by such a thing or experience, or changes in your internal reality. You know, sometimes such drastic changes to your inner energy then, you know, is reflected in your outer energy and outer reality as well. You know, as within, so without, as above, so below. And so you're having such, you know, drastic or large upgrades, or however you like to look at it, you know, changes within your own internal energy can then mean, you know, a big drastic, you know, change or scene shift in the reality around you, which, you know, may seem a little glitchy at the time or at first. And so not to be bewildered by that at all, and to just, you know, stay grounded, following your inner compass as you sort of, you know, ascend through those pathways. And then the final card we have here, boundaries, protection, discernment, sovereignty, limits, energy management, self-respect, personal space. Your peace is worth preserving. Your limits are sacred. Protect your field. It is sacred ground. Your energy is precious. Defend it wisely. Saying no is a form of love for yourself and others. Boundaries show others how to treat you. Your presence is powerful when it is respected. Holding space for yourself allows you to show up fully for others. You know, also a great card to come out here to kind of, you know, end the message in that way, with that message of, you know, protection and discernment and sovereignty. You know, when stepping more into a sort of sovereign energy or following your own pathway here, you know, sometimes it may cause up some backlash, or you may encounter some energies that just don't align or resonate in some ways. And so not being afraid to have your boundaries in that aspect, you know, respecting yourself and your personal space and your own personal limits in those ways, protecting your sacred energy, you know, protecting the guidance of your inner compass and the way you feel called to move, and not being afraid to do so. You know, really protecting your own inner energy and treating your own inner energy as sacred, you know, as we were saying before with the, you know, as within, so without. You know, your own inner energy really impacts a lot on the, you know, reality manifested around you and what you experience and encounter and what have you. And so your own inner energy is so important in that way. And so not being afraid to have boundaries as you need, and use your own discernment to manage and protect your energy in that way. So you're staying in an energy and having an energy within yourself that feels good for you, that, you know, feels calming or keeps you calm, where you feel grounded or happy and joyful, and trying to step away from those more lower, denser energies of, you know, fear and stress. or what have you that, don't feel so nice to experience internally. Having that discernment in that regard, and really, paying attention to and being mindful of your own inner energy and how you're curating that and how you're protecting that, so that your inner world can be a peaceful experience, and then more likely attract and manifest a peaceful experience around you as well. And you can express and hold such boundaries in a way that's still loving and graceful, and doesn't have to be so aggressive or violent, or or anything like that. But just stepping away from things when you feel like you need to step away, or not engaging with things that don't feel aligned for you to engage in. And not being afraid to voice your boundaries in a way that allows others to know and understand them, so that they can be respected. So, quite a strong and powerful message to come out here for you. Letting you know that you are on an ascension journey, and that can bring a lot of new energies and information and experiences occurring for you as your consciousness expands in that way. And so not being bewildered by such things, and just going with the flow of it, and following your inner compass, following that heart guidance and that voice within, and having that bold courage and confidence to do so, and to go through this experience in a way that's playful and joyful for yourself as well. Not being afraid to tap into your authenticity and your power and sovereignty, and expressing that wild, free fire. And not being alarmed if you tap into more telepathic type abilities, or experience any sort of forms of telepathic communication. That can be just a part of going through this sort of ascension journey here, where we tap more into those abilities that we do innately have within ourselves. It's just another form of communication and energetic connection. And so really, doing so, if that occurs for you, through a more heart-based connection rather than being trapped in your mind about it. And knowing that, Source God connection is always supporting you and guiding you, and is within you, with unconditional love, and that you are always connected to that infinite intelligence and divine support and flow and sacred guidance. And, as you go through these sort of, phases and ascension type journeys, not being afraid to protect your energy, to have boundaries as you need along that way, and use your own discernment with things. And not feeling like, pressured to follow any sort of conditioning or programming or, ideas of the system, if you will. And being more conscious, in your choices and the pathways and actions you take in that way of following more your inner compass, rather than that, unconscious programming or just conforming to the script. And, not being alarmed on the way as well if all this sort of stuff does, make more noticeable other people or energies around you that kind of are falling a bit more into that sort of, matrixy type unconscious programming way. Or any sort of, glitches or what have you that could occur. Or any sort of energies that, may come in and try to throw you off your path, or try to convince you to conform to certain things, or to follow sort of, different pathways. Not feeling alarmed by that at all, just, seeing it for what it is, kind of seeing through the veil in that aspect, and having your boundaries and discernment and that courage and, you know, wild freedom and authenticity to follow that inner compass and guidance within yourself, knowing that, you know, you are connected to that divine source God energy, that you can trust that and follow that, and not needing to, you know, follow and rely so much on that more sort of, you know, matrixy system programming type sort of ways of experiencing and engaging with the reality around you. You know, you don't have to always listen to those sort of more outside voices, programmed or conditioned ways of thinking and believing and acting. You can follow your own truth, your own pathway, and follow your own inner compass through this ascension journey, knowing that you are divinely guided and connected, you know, to that source God energy, and protected and loved always. And not being, you know, bewildered or alarmed by any sort of, you know, out of the ordinary sort of experience you could have in these sort of matrix agent type ways, you know, not allowing it to bring you into stress or fear or feeling paranoid or second guessing or doubting yourself or being worried or alarmed about things in that sort of way, you know, really protecting your energy in that way and staying in that playful heart-based sort of energy, you know, of joy and happiness and love, and having the confidence and courage to do so. You know, particularly the further we sort of move through these sort of ascension type journeys, and, you know, the more collectively humanity ascends and the consciousness expands, you know, around and on the planet as well, the more noticeable some of these more glitchy type moments or matrix agent type moments can occur or appear in a way that, you know, could seem a little weird or a little bewildering. So not to be thrown off track by that, and just to, you know, stay grounded, follow your inner compass, and know that, you know, you're always connected to that source energy, always protected and loved in that way, and nothing can take that from you. You can, you know, believe yourself and trust yourself and do what feels right for you, no matter how strong or powerful or convincing these more sort of outside, you know, matrix agency type energies can, you know, be at times, trying to, you know, pull you back into certain programming or conditioning. You know, you have that infinite divine power and intelligence within yourself. So you can, you know, you can trust yourself. And you can, you know, with the, what did it say here with this card? You know, you can have that self-leadership in that way, you know, being bright, regal and free. You know, you can be the sovereign royalty of your own life in that aspect, and having the confidence and divine fire to do so, you know, reclaiming that ancient power that lies dormant within you and within all of us. Knowing that, you know, you don't need a power outside of yourself, as you hold all the power within you, as is your divine birthright and, you know, eternal and infinite connection to that source God energy. All right, well, I might leave this one here for now. You know, I hope it has resonated for you in some way, or provided some clarity or guidance, or a little sign or synchronicity to help you along on your journey, you know, to feel that encouragement to, you know, carry on in a courageous and loving way, knowing that you never are truly alone. You are supported and guided, and that, you know, and can keep going. And remembering to, you know, protect that beautiful divine energy within yourself first and foremost. All right, well, sending you so much peace, love, light and blessings as always. Bye.